What is up, everybody? It's DRW here with the hot take over your commute. Hope that you had a great week last week if you were down at Nape, visiting with a lot of the landman friends and BD people and just people who really show up to drink. It is a great time, and I was really sad this year that I missed it. I missed it for the first time in 8 years. I think in the book I talk about the story of the first time I went to Nape after I got fired. And going from running this massive $1.5 billion asset, $300 million in capital, 4 rigs, and just hundreds of emails, hundreds of phone calls a day, to nothing, and then walking around the floors in Nape with a sheet of paper that says, "I'm trying to raise $500 million, and I also want to buy your assets." It was stark and it was painful, and in the last 8 years, every Nape got sequentially better. But this year, the move and schedule got me. I already had a golf trip planned with my boys from the club. We do it every year, 12 of us. And that's where we're going to start today. Go a little off energy, but you're going to see I'm going to circle back here. Golfing in Scottsdale is pretty awesome. If you haven't done it and you're a golfer, I certainly recommend it. You can hit me up with an email on some of the courses. Southern Dunes, beauty. It's really, really value kind of place. Played there. That's where we started, and got back to the hotel. And because golf is a little bit expensive here in Scottsdale, the boys, we decided that we would split rooms at the Talking Stick Resort where we stay because, people like to gamble. So, we act a lot like college kids, not just because we're staying out way too late and just absolutely wrecked the next morning on the tee, but we save money by coming together, being logical. See, this is a theme here. We consolidate and put 2 people in a room so that we save the overhead. Isn't that a good idea? But I had a new roommate this year, different one from last year, and I went to bed early the first night. I was pretty wiped. I'm not gonna lie. I had a big golf day, and went to bed at 11. So I wake up at, let's say, 1:30, and it is pouring rain. And to understand, I don't think, or at least over Christmas, I didn't think that it rained a lot in Scottsdale. It's a desert. I'm not sure if you're aware, but deserts, dry, not supposed to rain. That was not the case over Christmas. It was raining so hard, I thought reindeer had landed on the roof and danced for 5 hours. And by the time we woke up in the morning, there was a lake around the property we were staying at. And so I learned, it does in fact rain here pretty hard. So at 1:30 I wake up and it is pouring. And I mean, I didn't think that it was in the weather report, but I'm not a weatherman, so I went back to sleep. 3 a.m. I wake up. It is raining harder if it's possible. And I am starting to worry that maybe there's the water levels coming up in the main lobby in the casino, and that we're going to have an evacuation order. By 7, clearly we're not golfing today. We're going to have to figure out something else to do. 12 dudes stuck in Scottsdale on a golf trip, not golfing. How fun does that sound? Sounds expensive because that would be a lot of blackjack over a 12-hour period. But anyway, my roommate wakes up, walks over, turns off his sound machine, which he'd turned on after I went to sleep, and I didn't know about. So I made an assumption that it was doing something that I had seen before, which was a torrential downpour. And in actual fact, something was different. I had a roommate. So that is where we're going to start, tying it all the way back to energy. And the comments that Michael Worth said in response to Jim Cramer's whole, I'm sure you heard about it on CNBC, the oil's the new tobacco. And I totally disagree with that for obvious reasons. Oil and gas are the power of our world economy. Transportation, heat, energy. Without it, you can do nothing. Cigarettes, other than when you're hanging out playing blackjack at 1:30 in the morning, you don't really need cigarettes. So I'm going to say that it was a wrong characterization by Cramer. The reality is energy stocks are not doing well because, as you've heard me say on this podcast before and in my blog, most energy companies are overvalued. We're an asset business. We should trade on NAV. We don't trade on NAV, and I think most guys are overvalued. That's why stocks are going down. But Michael Worth sort of was responding to this and said, we've built our company for this kind of price environment. And to that I say, no, we have not. No U.S. producer can survive $50 oil and $2 gas for any sustained period of time. So I think expecting that this is like a downpour and that we can drive costs down and we can do things. We've been doing that for 5 years. And at $50 a barrel, this thing just doesn't work. Which begs the question, why on earth are these guys, Chevron and Exxon, the biggest two U.S. producers, continuing to say that they're going to grow out of the Permian? We want OPEC to cut, because if they cut, prices go up. And then we just grow into the gap. I mean, why? What are we doing? Guys, flat production, declining production. Work with your banks. Yes, your debt to EBITDA covenants might get blown if your production declines, but like oil prices are down 20%, gas prices are down 20%. Your debt to EBITDA is screwed anyway. So here's my suggestion. I think the word of the month for February should be decline. And every management team that comes out with their 2020 guidance, there should be like a big podium that we build. And if a management team comes out and says, we're going to grow production next year, like we should put them on there and then like throw tomatoes at them. Little public shaming to bring this back. And for those shareholders out there, vote, on the proxy, vote against the board, because we should not be growing production. It's just idiotic. It is raining, it is pouring, and the board and the management team is snoring. That we have to do something different. So the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over. I am proposing a drastic reworking of 2020 capital budgets where things change. And so that pivots us to Cabot, who did come out with their 2020. They did actually say they're going to keep gas flat at about 2.4, 2.5 BCF a day. By my read, they have about 1.7 BCF a day of firm transportation, which tells me they could decline 25%, and there is too much gas. So, Cabot, why are we not declining? I don't understand it. So maybe we could have one of the management team members come on to the podcast and talk about why we need more gas and why we're keeping production flat and why we're keeping CapEx up. Because I noted in the press release, at $2.25 an MCF, they generate $275 million of free cash flow. Well, guess what, guys? Gas is $1.80. So there's no free cash flow. Why spend $575 million in CapEx when you just shut it down? Go home. Send your employees to like Habitat for Humanity once a week. Have everyone read management books. There's a great economics book out there that you could check out. But like, let's do something different. That's Cabot. That's Exxon. That's Chevron. Let's talk a little bit about NAPE. And broadly, I think there was a lot of enthusiasm from the people who sort of reported back to me. Things are going to change and deals are going to start coming. But this is how I characterize the current state of the M&A market as it comes to asset transactions. If you're selling an asset, it's because it's either non-core or you need to pay down debt, and most likely both. And your debt, your interest rates have been 5 or 6%. So the PV, the discount rate that you use to value the asset, looks more like a debt. Call it PV8, PV9, PV10, something like that. The buyers are having, obviously there's not a lot of capital, but where there is capital available, people want the value to be dripping off the page. Like you include every possible bad thing that can happen and discount it at 25% at the lowest prices ever, worst well performance, parent-child, high CapEx, etc. There's your bid. Well, the spread between PV8, which is where the seller needs to sell it to be able to actually maintain their business, and PV25, which is where the buyer could actually raise money to buy something, that is a massive spread. That's like a 2-3x spread. So when people at NAPE are talking about, well, I think, we're going to see PDP deals, we're going to see more transactions, etc. The reason we're not is because the companies who are selling need the money so bad that they need a PV8 valuation and no buyer is going to pay for that. That is why the only M&A that can happen is using equity, like WPX did with Felix, like Jagged Peak was bought by Parsley, like PDC bought SRC. Those are the deals that are going to happen. They take a lot of ego checking at the door because some management team is going to get wiped out. A lot of G&A is going to be cut. Those are the bad things. But if we continue down this path, everyone is going to lose their jobs. This way, at least you can kick the can down the road, let production decline, let prices come to a normalized, stabilized world, and survive. But that is why we're not seeing deals. So hanging at NAPE and chatting at NAPE and seeing all the deals that are out there, that's the reason it's like a 2 to 3 year window where a lot of these public mid caps, small caps have to go away so that you have the consolidation, and through equity, you're effectively kicking the can down the road, strengthening your balance sheet, and being able to borrow money cheaper. Which brings us to our last topic for this week, which is debt refinancings, which I know everyone looks forward to this part of the podcast. Everyone says, oh, I want to know about what happened last week with debt. I love debt. I saw The Big Short. I understand that debt is way bigger than equity. That's where the story is. DRW, tell me about the refinancing. And I'm glad that you asked. Parsley, who did buy Jagapeak, as we talked about, was able to refinance some debt at 4.5% last week, which is very similar to what WPX did with their debt financing for purchasing Felix. What does that tell us? It tells us that in the Permian Basin, when you consolidate and do what the market wants, they will give you 4.5% interest rates, which is good. You can make a spread on a PV 4.5 versus PV 10. There's money to be made there, and companies will survive. The Permian is the right basin because you can grow. It is generally oilier. The economics are generally better, and the inventory is generally longer lived than the rest of the world or rest of America. On the other hand, Baytex refinanced $500 million of debt at 8.75%. What are their assets? Heavy oil in Canada, big differentials, Duvernay in Canada, Viking in Canada, and Eagle Ford, which is declining. So even though they only have like 2.3, 2.4 times debt to EBITDA, which, it's not low, but it's not high relative to some of their peers, 8.75% as an interest rate is pretty tough, because if you have a PV10 versus an 8.75% interest rate, the margin you're making for your equity is like 1.25%. That's just, there's not a lot of room to run there. So again, it continues to illuminate the story that consolidation is good. Consolidation needs to happen. And we need to go like Noah's Ark and pair up 2 by 2, kick the can down the road, come together, have a party, go on a golf trip, wait for the storm to end in 2020, let production decline 10, 15%, get prices up to where the world can, where the American producer can survive, and in so doing, generally save our industry. Because it's going to be a long, long year if we don't change. With that being said, I hope everyone has a wonderful week. Be safe, be good. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.